The first thing I felt wasn't pain, it was the cold. A sterile chemical cold that seeped into my skin. The smell of antiseptic and old coffee hit me next, sharp and unwelcome. I heard a machine beeping, a rhythmic, indifferent pulse that seemed to be counting down to nothing. My eyes cracked open. The fluorescent lights overhead were a brutal, buzzing white, making the pale ceiling tiles look like a map of water stains. I tried to lift my hand to my head, but my arm was a lead weight. It felt disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. "Oh, look who's finally awake!" The voice sliced through the fog. It was sharp, perfectly manicured, and utterly devoid of warmth. Jocelyn. My daughter-in-law stood at the foot of the hospital bed. Her arms were crossed over a crisp, navy blue dress that made her look like she was attending a board meeting, not a hospital vigil. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a chignon so tight it seemed to pull the smile from her face. I tried to speak. My throat felt like it was full of sand. A dry, rasping sound was all that came out. "Don't strain yourself, Francis," she said, gliding closer. Her voice shifted, adopting that syrupy, concerned tone she saved for public appearances. "The doctors say you had a terrible reaction to something. Severe food poisoning, they think." She paused, tilting her head as if examining a piece of art she wasn't sure about. "You've been unconscious for 2 days." 2 days. The words slammed into me. I tried to reel my thoughts back. What happened? The pie. Jocelyn had brought me one of her famous apple pies. I remembered the first bite, cloyingly sweet, almost burning, then nothing. My hand finally obeyed, lifting with a tremor. I brought it up to my head, my fingers searching for the familiar feel of my hair. They found nothing. My hand met smooth, cold skin. My hair, my thick silver hair that I'd had for 67 years, was gone. All of it. A sound tore from my throat, a strangled gasp that was more animal than human. Jocelyn leaned in. She was so close I could smell her perfume, an expensive, heavy scent that always gave me a headache. She bent down until her perfectly painted lips were right next to my ear. Her voice dropped to a whisper, a venomous, private little secret just for me. "Finally, a look that suits you. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you." The cruelty of it, the sheer naked malice, hit me harder than any physical blow. This wasn't the Jocelyn who smiled at family dinners. This wasn't the woman who called me Mom in front of Damien. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. But a deeper, colder instinct took over. I let my eyes flutter and close. I let my breathing go shallow, adding a small, pathetic rattle. Jocelyn's shadow stiffened. I felt her watching me. "Nurse!" she called out, her voice instantly snapping back to one of panic. "Nurse, quickly! I think she's having trouble breathing again." A young woman in blue scrubs rushed in, her eyes wide with alarm. She checked the monitors, her brow furrowing. "Her heart rate is elevated. Mrs. Hawthorne? Francis, can you hear me?" I kept my eyes closed, focusing on the shallow breaths. Through my lashes, I saw Jocelyn's face. She wasn't watching the nurse. She was watching me, her eyes narrowed. I saw a flicker of impatience, disappointment. "She's been in and out like this," Jocelyn said, her voice trembling with fake worry. "The poor thing. She's been getting so forgetful lately, even before this. Sometimes she doesn't even recognize me." The lie was so bold, so blatant, it almost made me gasp for real. My mind was a steel trap. I never forgot anything. But the nurse was nodding, scribbling on her clipboard. "The doctor will want to run more tests. Hair loss can be a side effect of severe poisoning, especially if certain chemicals were involved. We're still waiting on the full toxicology." "Of course," Jocelyn said, dabbing at a dry eye. "Whatever she needs. Damien and I just want her to get better." The nurse left. Jocelyn sat in the hard plastic visitor's chair for another hour. She didn't speak. She just scrolled through her phone, sighing loudly whenever a hospital worker walked past the open door. But I could feel her eyes on me, studying me, waiting. When visiting hours ended, she stood up. "I'll be back tomorrow, Mom," she said, loud enough for the nurse's station to hear. Then she leaned down to my ear again, that cloud of perfume washing over me. "Sweet dreams," she whispered. I lay in the dark, the beeping of the monitor the only sound, the pie, the 2 lost days, the hair loss, and Jocelyn's lie to the nurse. She was painting a picture of a confused, dying old woman. A memory surfaced, cold and sharp. 3 months ago, the fatigue had started, a heavy, unnatural exhaustion that I'd blamed on age. I'd mentioned it to Damien on the phone. "Maybe you should see Dr. Monroe, Mom," he'd said, all genuine concern. "Jocelyn's been worried, too. She said you seemed a little off last time she visited." She'd been off, all right. She'd been laying the groundwork. The next morning, a different nurse came in. She was older, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense set to her mouth. "How are we feeling today, dear?" she asked, checking my IV. I decided to take a risk. "My daughter-in-law," I said, my voice still a croak. "She said I've been forgetful." The nurse, whose name tag read Brenda, paused. "Forgetful? Honey, you've been perfectly lucid every time I've checked on you, sharp as a tack." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Yesterday," Brenda continued, "you rattled off all 6 of your medications, your doctor's name, and your social security number for the admitting paperwork. You're sharper than half the staff here." So, it was a lie. A deliberate, calculated lie. "The hair loss," I pushed, my voice gaining a bit of strength. "Is it permanent?" Brenda's kind face softened. "Well, it depends on the cause. The doctor suspects a chemical reaction. Your blood work showed elevated levels of several substances that shouldn't be there. Once we identify the source and stop the exposure, it should grow back just fine." Elevated levels of substances that shouldn't be there. The pieces were no longer just forming a picture. They were forming an accusation. Damien finally arrived that afternoon. My son, my only child, looked wrecked. His suit was rumpled from the flight from Cleveland and his eyes were red-rimmed. When he saw me, his face crumpled. He saw the monitors, the IV, and the smooth, pale skin of my scalp. "Mom! Oh God, Mom!" He rushed to the bed, pulling the chair close and gripping my hand. His own was trembling. "I'm so sorry. The conference ran late. I didn't get Jocelyn's messages until last night. How are you?" "Tired," I said. It was the truth. Confused about what happened. The doctors said it was food poisoning. Really severe. He was struggling, his eyes darting between my face and my bald head. "Jocelyn said, she said you've been having some memory issues. Maybe you ate something that had gone bad without even realizing it." There it was. The poison Jocelyn had been feeding my son. "Damien," I said, trying to keep my voice firm. "I haven't been having memory problems. I am as sharp as I have ever been." He squeezed my hand, a gentle, placating gesture. The kind of gesture you give a confused child. "It's okay, Mom. These things, they can be gradual. Sometimes we don't notice them in ourselves. Jocelyn has been so worried." "Jocelyn is lying, Damien." The words hung in the sterile air. He flinched, pulling his hand back slightly. "Mom, don't say that. She loves you. She's been the one managing everything. She's been frantic. Why would she lie about something like that?" I looked at my son, the man I had raised, the man whose college I'd paid for by working 2 jobs, and I saw that he was already gone. He believed his wife. He believed her completely. He saw my bald head and my weakness, and he didn't see a victim of an attack. He saw a confused old woman who had poisoned herself by mistake. "It's okay," he said, forcing a smile. "We'll take care of you. Jocelyn and I will handle everything." I closed my eyes. He thought he was comforting me, but all I heard was a cell door clanging shut. Jocelyn drove me home 5 days later. The hospital released me with a stack of pamphlets and a grim warning from the doctor that they still hadn't identified the exact chemical agent, but that it was no longer in my system. The ride was suffocatingly quiet, broken only by the soft, bland jazz Jocelyn played on the car stereo. She hummed along, her perfectly manicured nails tapping on the leather-wrapped steering wheel. "I picked up all your prescriptions yesterday," she said as we turned onto my street. "I got a new organizer and set everything up on the kitchen counter. I even made a little schedule. It can be so confusing, all those new pills." The subtle, constant implication. You are confused. You are incapable. I just nodded, my hand clenching in my lap. My little bungalow looked the same, but it felt wrong, foreign. Jocelyn helped me inside, her hand a vice on my elbow, guiding me as if I were a blind invalid. "I've been checking on things while you were away," she announced, bustling into my living room. She fluffed pillows that didn't need fluffing, watered your plants, brought in the mail. I tidied up a bit too. My eyes scanned the room. Everything was clean, too clean. My reading glasses weren't on the side table. My stack of library books was gone, and the small blue spiral notebook I kept by the phone, the one with all my appointments, numbers, and lists, was missing. "Where's my notebook?" I asked. Jocelyn paused mid-fluff. "Notebook? Oh, that old thing?" She waved a dismissive hand. "Honestly, Francis, it was just full of confusing notes. Half of them didn't even make sense. I threw it out." My stomach turned to ice. "I want it back." "Honey, it's gone. Trash pickup was yesterday." Her voice was still patient, but I heard the steel beneath it. "Don't worry your head about it. I told you I'll help you keep track of everything you need to remember. Damien and I have already been talking about getting you some more regular help." She was erasing me, piece by piece. That evening, after Jocelyn finally left with a promise to return first thing in the morning with breakfast, I sat in my silent kitchen. The counter looked like a pharmacy. She had, as promised, set up a large plastic 7-day pill organizer. Next to it were the bottles. My regular blood pressure pill was there, but there were 3 new ones. I picked up the first. Atavor. The label said for anxiety. I'd never been prescribed anxiety medication in my life. I picked up the second. My blood ran cold. Dementrex. I'd seen the commercials. It was for Alzheimer's. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely read the label. Prescribed by Dr. L. Monroe, my doctor. The prescription was dated 2 weeks ago, but I hadn't seen Dr. Monroe in over a month. I would have remembered a prescription for dementia. I would have fought it. I would have, unless I wasn't the one who had spoken to the doctor. I grabbed the bottles and ran to my bedroom. I didn't feel weak. I felt a surge of pure, cold adrenaline. I hid them in the back of my closet under a stack of old blankets. I sat on my bed, the room spinning. I had to think. I had to timeline this. I found a legal pad in my desk. I started writing. 3 months ago, fatigue begins. The weeks I woke up feeling like I'd been drugged. The weeks Jocelyn had started visiting more often, always bringing coffee or fresh-pressed juice. 2 months ago, dizziness and brain fog. The mornings I'd feel unsteady, confused. The times I'd forget a word mid-sentence. Jocelyn had been there for almost all of them. "See, Mom, this is what I was worried about," she'd say to me, her voice full of pity. 6 weeks ago, the missing appointment. I'd sworn I had a dentist appointment. I'd gone all the way there. They had no record of me. Jocelyn had found me wandering in the parking lot, claiming she just had a feeling I'd be confused. "Oh, Mom, you wrote it on the wrong day," she'd said, showing me my calendar where the appointment was clearly marked for the following week. Had she changed it? The prescription for Dementrex was dated 2 weeks ago. I hadn't seen Dr. Monroe. but Jocelyn had. At 8:01 a.m. the next morning, my finger was on the phone dialing Dr. Monroe's office. The receptionist, Lauren, had known me for 15 years. "Oh, Frances, dear, how are you feeling? We heard you were in the hospital. We were so worried." "Lauren, I'm okay. I need to ask you about a prescription." My voice was shaking. "A drug called Dementrex. The bottle says it was prescribed 2 weeks ago, but I don't remember seeing Dr. Monroe." There was a pause, the sound of typing. Let me pull up your file. Yes, here it is. Dementrex. Did I come in for that?" Another longer pause. Lauren's voice dropped. "Actually, no. Your daughter-in-law, Jocelyn, came in to pick it up. She had a handwritten note from you." "A note?" "Yes. It said you were too embarrassed about your memory lapses to come in, but that you'd discussed it with Dr. Monroe at your last visit and wanted to start the medication. She said you'd given her permission to handle it." My mouth was bone dry. "Lauren, I never wrote any note. I never spoke to Dr. Monroe about memory lapses. My last visit was a flu shot." The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. "Frances," Lauren said finally, her voice all business, "is everything all right? Dr. Monroe is booked solid, but can you come in today? 11:30. He will make time." "Yes," I whispered. "I'll be there." I hung up the phone and my hand fell to the counter. A forged note. She had forged a note to get me dementia medication. My phone rang, making me jump out of my skin. Jocelyn. I stared at it. I had to answer. I had to be the weak, confused old woman. I took a breath and picked up. "Hello? Good morning, Frances. How are you feeling, sweetie?" "Tired, Jocelyn, still very tired." "Well, I have just the thing. I'm at the store picking up ingredients for my famous chicken soup. That'll put some pep back in your step. I'll be there in about 20 minutes. The soup that always made me feel so rested, so sleepy. "Oh, no, dear, that's nonsense. You need to eat. I'm already on my way. Besides, we need to talk more about getting you some help around the house. Damien and I are very, very concerned." The line clicked dead. 20 minutes. I flew to my bedroom. The pill bottles. I couldn't let her see they were gone. I grabbed them from the closet. I needed proof. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I grabbed a small nail file. I scraped tiny, minuscule amounts of powder from the Dementrex pills. I scraped a bit from the Atavor. I put them in 2 separate envelopes, labeling them with a pen. She was coming. I had to hide them. I shoved the envelopes into my old jewelry box, tucking them beneath the velvet lining where I kept my mother's wedding ring. A car door slammed outside. She was early. I raced back to the kitchen, shoving the pill bottles back onto the counter just as her key turned in the lock. I slumped into a kitchen chair, trying to look frail. "Mom, I'm here!" Jocelyn swept in, carrying 2 overflowing grocery bags and radiating a sickeningly bright energy. "I brought everything for the soup, plus a new herbal tea. The man at the store said it's wonderful for calmness and sleep." Sleep. The kind of sleep I'd been having for months. The kind you don't wake up from easily. "You really shouldn't have," I murmured, playing my part. "Of course I did. We're family." She began unpacking, moving around my kitchen with an ownership that made my skin crawl. "You just sit there, Frances. Don't lift a finger. I'll handle everything." I sat at the table, my hands clasped in my lap to stop them from shaking, and I watched. I watched her with new eyes. I saw things I'd been blind to for months. I saw the way she positioned her body, blocking my view of the cutting board as she chopped the vegetables. I saw the way she meticulously washed the pot before she started, even though it was already clean. And I saw it. She thought I was staring at the wall, lost in a confused fog. Her back was to me. She reached into her expensive leather purse. She pulled out a small amber-colored vial. It was tiny, no bigger than her thumb. With a quick, practiced motion, she undid the dropper cap. She squeezed 3, 4, 5 drops into the pot of simmering broth. She stirred it, replaced the cap, and slipped the vial back into her purse in one seamless movement. It took less than 5 seconds. "This is going to smell wonderful in a minute," she chirped, turning back to me with a brilliant smile. "You're such a good daughter-in-law, Jocelyn. So thoughtful." She glanced at me, and I saw a flicker of, was it pride? Satisfaction in a job well done? It was gone in an instant. "Anything for you, Francis. Damien's told me so much about how you sacrificed for him, working 2 jobs after his father left, putting him through law school. You deserve to be taken care of." The words were sweet. The tone was not. There was a hard, brittle edge to it. Resentment. "He's a good son," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "We're both lucky." "Oh yes," she agreed, stirring the soup with more force than necessary. "Very successful. That promotion to senior partner. It came with a very nice salary increase." She paused, then added, "And of course, there's the inheritance he'll get. Someday." My blood didn't just run cold. It froze solid. "Inheritance?" I kept my voice weak, confused. "Well, this house alone," she laughed, a light, airy sound. "It must be worth over 300,000 by now. The neighborhood has really improved, and Damien mentioned you have your savings and that life insurance policy from your old job." She stopped, as if suddenly realizing she'd said too much. The damage was done. It wasn't just about making me seem confused. It was about money, my house, my life insurance, all of which would go to Damien. And Jocelyn, as she'd soon correct me, controlled Damien. "The soup's ready," she announced brightly. "Let me get you a nice big bowl." She ladled the soup from the pot, taking extra care to scoop from the bottom, where the drops from her vial would be most concentrated. She set the steaming bowl in front of me. "Eat up," she smiled. "I added some special herbs. They'll help with your energy." Special herbs. I stared at the bowl. It looked innocent. Chicken, noodles, carrots. It smelled delicious, and it was designed to make me sicker or worse. I had to play along. I had to survive until my 11:30 appointment. I picked up the spoon. "It smells wonderful, but I'm just not very hungry." Her smile tightened. "Oh, but you must eat, Francis. You're wasting away. David's been so worried about your nutrition." She sat down across from me, her eyes fixed on my face. She was going to watch me eat it. This was new. Usually she'd serve me and then get busy tidying, giving the poison time to work before she left. I lifted a spoonful to my lips. I held the hot liquid in my mouth, my mind racing. I couldn't swallow it. I leaned forward and pretended to have a violent coughing fit. I spat the soup back into the bowl, letting it dribble down my chin. "Oh dear," I gasped, grabbing a napkin. "I'm so sorry, Jocelyn. This cough from the hospital, it won't go away." Jocelyn's eyes narrowed. Just for a fraction of a second, I saw pure, unadulterated frustration. "Maybe you should try the tea instead," she said, her voice strained. "It might soothe your throat." "Yes, maybe." I stood up, pushing the chair back. I let my knees buckle slightly, grabbing the table for support. "Oh, I'm suddenly very dizzy." "Of course," she said, frustration warring with her caring facade. "Here, let me help you to your room." No, I said, waving her away. "I can manage. Thank you for the soup, dear. It really was lovely." I shuffled to my bedroom, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. I closed the door, but I didn't lock it. I leaned against it, listening. I heard her moving in the kitchen. I heard her on the phone, her voice a low, angry murmur. Stronger than I thought. No, she barely had any. Yes, tomorrow. She was planning for tomorrow. After 10 minutes, she knocked softly. "I'm leaving now, Francis. I put the soup in the fridge. Make sure you have some before bed. It's important for your recovery." "Thank you, dear," I called back, my voice weak and sleepy. I will. The second I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I ran to the kitchen. The soup was in a large Tupperware, labeled Francis's Soup Eat in her neat, aggressive handwriting. The tea bags she'd brought were gone. The vial was gone. She'd taken her tools with her, but she'd made a mistake. In her anger, she'd been careless. Near the stove, on my white countertop, was a tiny spill, a few granules of a white crystalline powder. It looked like salt, but finer. It must have been on her hands when she was seasoning the soup, before she'd added the liquid from the vial. Maybe she was using more than one thing. My hands were shaking again, but this time with purpose. I grabbed a clean spoon and a new envelope. I carefully, meticulously scraped every single granule into the envelope. I labeled it counter powder and ran to my bedroom. I hid it in the jewelry box with the other two. I had proof, tangible, physical proof. I called a taxi service. I couldn't drive. Not if she'd succeeded in giving me anything. I told them to pick me up at 11:15 at the corner, not my house. I had to get to Dr. Monroe. I had to get this evidence to him. My phone rang. Damien. Hi, Mom. Jocelyn just called me. She's really upset. She said you wouldn't eat anything and you seemed very confused. She's worried you're declining fast. Damien, I said, my voice low and urgent, you need to listen to me. Jocelyn is... Mom, please. He cut me off, and the exhaustion in his voice broke my heart. Please don't. I know this is hard. I know you don't want to admit it, but Jocelyn she's been keeping a log of the incidents. A log? What incidents? The times you've gotten lost, the appointments you've missed, the conversations you don't remember having. She's been writing it all down to show Dr. Monroe. She's just trying to get you the right help. My own notebook, the one I used to stay organized, was confusing. But her log, a secret diary of my fabricated decline, was evidence. Damien, none of those things are true. She's making it up. Mom, he almost shouted, you forgot our lunch last week. Jocelyn had to remind you. You asked me 3 times yesterday if I'd finished the Cleveland project. My blood chilled. I hadn't forgotten the lunch. Jocelyn had told me he'd canceled it, and I'd only asked about the project because she kept saying he was stressed about it. She was creating the incidents, then reporting them to him as proof of my decline. It was a perfect, inescapable trap. Damien, I pleaded, I am not confused. My memory is fine. She is... Mom, I can't do this right now, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Jocelyn and we're looking at a place. It's called Silver Meadows. It's an assisted living facility. It's really nice. We just want you to be safe. They weren't just talking about help. They were actively trying to put me away. I don't need assisted living, I said, my voice flat. We'll talk about it this weekend, he said, ignoring me. I love you, Mom. Please, just try to cooperate with Jocelyn. She's doing her best. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, clutching the phone. My son, my own son, was helping her. He was an unknowing accomplice in his own mother's destruction, and anything I said to defend myself would only be seen as more proof that I was too impaired to recognize my own condition. I had one chance. The evidence hidden in my jewelry box. I had to get it to Dr. Monroe. I had 2 hours until my taxi. I couldn't just sit in the house, a prisoner. The walls felt like they were closing in. I needed air. I needed to feel normal just for a minute. I put on my walking shoes, grabbed my purse, and left. I walked down my street, forcing myself to nod at neighbors, to look like Frances Hawthorne enjoying a sunny morning. But every car that passed made me jump. Every person I saw felt like one of her spies. I walked for an hour, my mind racing. I planned exactly what I would say to Dr. Monroe. I would give him the envelopes. He would test them. He would call Damien. He would make him see the truth. I felt a sliver of hope. I returned home at 10:45 a.m., leaving just enough time to collect my evidence and walk to the corner for the taxi. I let myself in. The house was silent, but something was wrong. The air was different. The faint, cloying scent of Jocelyn's perfume lingered near the front door. My heart stopped. She wasn't supposed to be here. She hadn't been here when I left. I ran to my bedroom. Everything looked normal. The bed was made. The counter in the kitchen was clear. I was just being paranoid. I went to my closet. I pulled out my old jewelry box. It was wrong. The lid was closed, but it was just slightly askew. Not the way I leave it. I always leave it perfectly straight. My hands fumbled with the clasp. I threw the lid open. The tangle of old necklaces and earrings was there, but the velvet lining, it was rumpled, pulled up at the corner. I ripped the lining out. The space beneath it was empty. The envelopes were gone. The pill scrapings, the powder from the counter, all of it. No, I whispered. No, no, no. She had come back. While I was out on my walk, she had used her key. She'd known I was suspicious. She must have guessed I'd try to collect evidence. She'd searched my room, and she'd found it. She'd found my only proof, and she had destroyed it. I had an appointment with Dr. Monroe in 30 minutes, and I was going with nothing but the word of a confused old woman. I took the taxi, my entire body numb with despair. I walked into Dr. Monroe's office looking exactly like the person Jocelyn had described, pale, trembling, and wild-eyed. Lauren, the receptionist, took one look at me and ushered me straight back to his private office. "Francis, what on earth is going on?" Dr. Monroe said, standing from his desk. He was a kind man with gentle eyes that were now full of alarm. "She took it," I whispered, sinking into the chair. "I had proof, and she took it." "Who? Proof of what?" The story spilled out of me. The hospital, the hair loss, the whisper, the forged prescription for Dementrex, the soup, the vial, the powder on the counter, the hidden envelopes, the perfume in my house, the empty jewelry box. I talked for 10 minutes, uninterrupted. I know I sounded crazy. I know I sounded paranoid. When I finished, I was crying. I know how I sound, but it's the truth. She's trying to make me seem insane so she and Damien can get my house and my life insurance. And now I have nothing. No proof. Doctor. Monroe was silent for a long time, his fingers steepled on his desk. He stared at me, his gaze analytical. "Francis," he said finally, "in your last cognitive assessment 3 months ago, you scored in the 99th percentile for your age group. Your memory was and is exceptional." I let out a sob of pure relief. "I never prescribed you Dementrex," he continued, his voice hardening. "I never authorized a prescription based on a handwritten note. My receptionist, Lauren, confirms Jocelyn was insistent and used your son's name to pressure her." He stood up. "You said you came from the hospital, that they ran toxicology." "Yes," I said, wiping my face. "They said I had elevated levels of substances, but they couldn't identify them." "Well, I'm going to run my own," he said, picking up his phone. "I'm sending you to the lab right now for an emergency toxicology screen. We're not looking for illicit drugs. We're looking for a specific panel of sedatives, antipsychotics, and other things. Things that, when mixed, mimic the symptoms of dementia." He scribbled on a prescription pad. "And Francis?" "Yes? I believe you." He tore off the sheet and handed it to me. "But you're right. You have no proof that will hold up. Your son won't believe you. The police will think it's a family dispute. If she is doing this, she is smart, and she is dangerous." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a business card. "You need real proof. This man, Mason Walsh, he's a private investigator. He's discreet and he's the best. He finds things people don't want found." I met Mason Walsh that evening at a dark, empty diner 20 miles from my neighborhood. He looked more like a rumpled college professor than a detective. He had kind, observant eyes and listened patiently for 30 minutes as I retold my story, this time with more clarity. When I finished, he took a long sip of his black coffee. "That's quite a story, Mrs. Hawthorne," he said. "It's the truth," I said, my hands clenched on the table. "I'm out of time. She's trying to get me put in a facility called Silver Meadows, and I have no proof. She stole it." "The stolen proof is a problem," he said. "It means she's paranoid. She knows you're suspicious. That makes her more dangerous and my job harder." "What can you do?" "Cameras," he said. "She has a key, you said? She lets herself in?" "Yes, constantly." "Even better." He leaned forward. "We put micro cameras in your kitchen, your living room, the hallway, pointed at the front door. We record everything. We catch her bringing in the food. We catch her tampering with your medication. We get her on audio." "Audio?" "If she's talking to herself or on the phone, people like this get cocky. They slip up." He sat back. "But this is not cheap, Francis. My services require a retainer, $5,000, and it's dangerous. If she finds those cameras, she won't just try to put you in a home, she will escalate." $5,000. It was a huge chunk of my emergency savings, the money I'd set aside for a new roof. "She's already escalating," I said, pulling my checkbook from my purse. "I'll write the check. When can you start?" The next morning was a terrifying dance. I called Jocelyn. "Jocelyn, dear," I said, my voice trembling. It wasn't hard to fake. I think you and Damien are right. I'm scared. I'm so confused. I think I need help." The silence on the other end was heavy with her shock, and then her triumph. "Oh, Francis," she breathed. "You're doing the right thing. This is a brave, brave decision. Damien will be so relieved." "I'm going to the library," I lied. "Just to sit, to think. I'll be gone all morning." "That's a wonderful idea. You do that. I'll stop by later this afternoon to check on you. Okay?" "Okay," I whispered and hung up. I called my taxi and went to the public library. I sat in a hard wooden chair for 3 hours, staring at a newspaper, my mind screaming. I was terrified she'd come home. I was terrified she'd run into Mason. At 1 p.m. I returned. The house was silent. There was no sign of Mason, no dust, no dirt. But under my front doormat, he'd left a single new penny. The all-clear signal we'd agreed on. He was in. The eyes were in place. Now all I had to do was be the bait. For 3 days, the cameras rolled. Jocelyn came and went, bringing me healthy smoothies I dumped down the sink and easy-to-digest casseroles I flushed down the toilet. She was careful. She prepared everything at her house now. She'd clearly been spooked by her discovery in my jewelry box. "We have nothing," Mason told me over our secure line. "She's not adding anything in your house. She's just a doting daughter-in-law on camera." "She's still poisoning me," I insisted. "I can feel it. The smoothies. They make me drowsy just from the smell." "We need more." Then, on the 4th day, Mason called. "I've got something." I pulled her financials. She's got a secret bank account. Made a $3,000 cash withdrawal 2 days ago, and I've got surveillance. She met a man, a diner, off the highway. "A co-conspirator?" My heart leaped. "Or a supplier," Mason said, his voice grim. "He's ex-military, runs a private security firm. I don't like it. I'm going to run a deeper check on him." For the next 2 days, all our resources went into this man. Mason put a tracker on his car. We sat in Mason's cramped sedan 2 blocks from the man's office, watching. Francis Hawthorne, P.I. It would have been funny if I wasn't terrified. We watched him meet with shady people. We watched him exchange briefcases. "This is it," Mason said. "He's supplying her." We followed him to a warehouse district. We watched him unload a van. It was time. Mason called in a tip to an old friend on the force, citing suspected trafficking. We watched as 2 squad cars rolled up. They opened the back of the man's van. I squinted. "Mason, are those purses?" Mason was staring, his mouth open. I'll be damned. The man wasn't a poison dealer. He wasn't an assassin. He was one of the biggest dealers of high-end counterfeit handbags on the East Coast. Jocelyn wasn't hiring a hitman. She was buying a knockoff Birkin bag. I burst into tears in the passenger seat. Francis, Mason said, his voice gentle, it's okay. This is what we do. We rule out the false leads. We've wasted 2 days, I cried. She's been in my house twice. What if we missed it? I'm running out of money, Mason. I'm running out of time. No, he said, starting the car. This is good. It means she's not hiring outside help. She's arrogant. She's doing it all herself, and that means she's going to get sloppy. He was right. That very night, she got sloppy. I was in my bedroom, pretending to be in a drugged sleep after claiming her latest smoothie had upset my stomach. The camera in the living room had a clear view of the kitchen phone. At 7:00 p.m., she came in using her key. She checked on me, saw I was asleep, and went to the kitchen. She thought she was alone. She picked up my phone and dialed. The camera's microphone was crystal clear. It's me. No, she's still resisting. She's stronger than I thought. I know, but it has to look natural. A gradual decline, not a sudden. Yes, the life insurance policy is still active. $250,000. Plus the house. My blood turned to ice. She knew the exact amount. Damien doesn't suspect a thing. He's rapt. He honestly believes she's developing dementia. He's the one pushing for Silver Meadows now, not me. She laughed. A cold, sharp sound. I'll have to increase the dosage. Maybe in a pot roast, something heavy. At her age, with her condition, if she has a heart attack or a stroke, no one will question it. It'll be a tragedy. She was quiet, listening to the person on the other end. The beauty is, Damien inherits everything, and I control Damien. We'll be set. Just be patient. Another pause. Her voice dropped, became even colder. Of course I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. My mother's death. It was ruled natural causes. Heart failure. No one ever suspected the antidepressants I was helpfully giving her were, well, something much stronger, mixed with her blood pressure meds. I had to cover my mouth with my pillow to keep from screaming. She had murdered her own mother in Alabama. This one is just taking longer, Jocelyn sighed, impatient. She's healthier than my mother was, but she won't last, not after tomorrow's meal. I've calculated the exact amount. It should cause cardiac arrest within 3 hours. It will just look like she went to sleep and never woke up. Cardiac arrest, tomorrow's meal. She hung up. I lay in my bed, frozen in a rictus of pure terror. She was planning to kill me tomorrow. I waited until I heard her car leave. I ripped my phone from the charger and called Mason. I have it. We have it all. We got it all, Francis, Mason said. He and a grim-faced man in a rumpled suit were in my living room. The sun was barely up. Detective Murphy, the man introduced himself, shaking my hand. His grip was firm. Mrs. Hawthorne, what you've endured it's horrific. And what you've captured is a full confession to conspiracy to commit murder and a confession to a prior homicide in Alabama. We're already contacting the authorities there. She's coming tonight, I said, my voice hoarse. With a pot roast, she said, cardiac arrest. And we'll be here, Murphy said. My team will be positioned outside, 2 officers in the back, 2 in the front. Mason and I will be in his van across the street listening to everything. She's bringing the meal. Yes, she said it would be a special dinner. Good. Murphy pulled a small black object from his pocket. This is a wire, Mrs. Hawthorne. It's high fidelity. We need her to talk. We need her to confirm what's in the food. We need her to talk about the money. Can you do that? Can I? I looked at him. After what I've heard, Detective, I'm going to get you a confession you can play in court. The day was the longest of my life. At 10 a.m., Jocelyn called, right on schedule. Francis, good morning. I have a wonderful idea. I'm going to make your favorite pot roast tonight. A special celebration. A celebration? I managed, my hand gripping the counter. Yes, a celebration of us making a plan for your future. David will be joining us after dinner, around 8. We can all sit down and talk about the options. The options. Silver Meadows. Or the morgue. That sounds wonderful, dear, I said. I've been looking forward to it. Good. You just rest. I'll be there around 6. At 5:45 p.m., I was sitting in my kitchen chair, the wire taped securely to my chest. I felt like a soldier. At 5:50 p.m., Mason's voice crackled in the tiny earpiece hidden in my ear. Team is in place. We are live. Good luck, Francis. At 5:55 p.m., I heard her key in the lock. Mom, I'm here. Jocelyn swept in, carrying a large casserole dish, a bottle of wine, and a bakery box. I hope you're hungry. It smells delicious, I said, trying to keep my voice frail. The wire felt heavy under my shirt. I wanted tonight to be special, she said, bustling around my kitchen. My kitchen. She moved with such confidence. A celebration of all the good times. A celebration of my death. She set the table, chattering about the weather. I watched her hands. She'd brought the wine already opened. I had a tiny sip just to make sure it wasn't corked, she explained. She dished a large portion of the pot roast onto my plate, taking care to scoop from one specific side of the dish. She poured me a full glass of the red wine. There we are, she said, setting the plate in front of me with a flourish. Eat up. You need your strength for your talk with Damien later. The food looked perfect. It smelled like my childhood, and it was laced with enough poison to stop my heart. It looks wonderful, I said, picking up my fork, but I'm just so nervous about this talk. What do you think will happen? She sat across from me, her eyes fixed on my plate. Well, we've found that lovely place, Silver Meadows. It's beautiful, Francis, excellent care. Damien and I both think it's perfect for someone in your condition. My condition? Your memory problems, dear. The confusion. Her voice was syrupy. David is so worried. We all are. I took a tiny bite of a carrot. I held it in my mouth, not chewing. But I don't feel confused, Jocelyn. My mind seems clear. Her smile tightened. That's often how it is with this. Patients don't realize how impaired they've become. That's why we, the family, have to make the hard decisions. I pretended to chew, then faked a small cough, spitting the food into my napkin. This is so tender. What's your secret? Oh, she smiled, just lots of love, and a few special seasonings. You should try the wine. It pairs perfectly. I lifted the glass, but didn't drink. Jocelyn, can I ask you something? A personal question. Of course, Mom. Do you think Damien will be all right after I'm gone? I worry so much about leaving him. Her mask slipped, just for a second. Her eyes lit up. Oh, you're not going anywhere for a long time, she said, but her tone was hollow. But when that day comes? Yes. I think Damien will be just fine. He'll have me. And of course, he'll inherit this house and your savings. That'll help him feel secure. The house? How much do you think it's worth? Oh, at least $300,000, she said, ticking off the numbers. And with your life insurance, that's $250,000, right? Damien will be very, very comfortable. She said it with such casual, dismissive greed. You've thought about this a lot, I said, setting my fork down. We have to plan for the future, Francis. Jocelyn, I said, my voice quiet but clear. Sometimes I wonder if I'm sicker than everyone is telling me. These past few months, I felt so weak. Do you think I might be dying? The excitement in her eyes was sickening. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I have noticed you're declining. Faster lately. Sometimes these things progress very quickly. Heart problems, strokes. The body just gives out. She was describing her plan. Is that what happened to your mother in Alabama? Jocelyn froze. Her face went blank. The smile, the concern, the warmth, it all evaporated. Her eyes turned to chips of ice. What did you say? Your mother. David said it was very sudden, a heart attack in her sleep. These things happen, she said, her voice flat and cold. I just hope, when my time comes, that it's peaceful, I said, pushing the plate away. I wouldn't want to be in pain. Oh, you won't be, Jocelyn said. The satisfaction in her voice was unmistakable. I'll make sure of that. You'll make sure? She realized her mistake. She tried to backtrack. I mean, I'll make sure you have good medical care, that we're there for you, like you were there for your mother? The mask didn't just drop, it shattered. You, she hissed, her voice a low snarl I'd never heard before. You think you're clever, don't you? I know you've been poisoning me, Jocelyn. I know about the forged prescriptions. I know about the vial. I know what you put in this pot roast. The color drained from her face. Then it returned in a hot, red flush of pure rage. You can't prove anything, she spat. Who would believe you? You're a confused old woman with dementia. That's what everyone knows. That's what your son knows. Damien will believe me. She laughed, a terrifying, ugly sound. Damien believes what I tell him to believe. He chose me over you months ago. He'll be sad for a week, and then he'll be relieved, and then he'll be rich. She stood up slowly. Her eyes darted to the magnetic knife block on my wall. You've caused me so much trouble, Francis. The slow method was kinder, but if you're going to be this difficult... She took a step toward the knives. Detective Murphy, I said, my voice ringing with a strength I didn't know I had. I think you have everything you need. Jocelyn froze, confused. The front door and the back door burst open at the same time, my kitchen filled with police officers. Jocelyn Chapman, Detective Murphy said, his gun level. You're under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Her face was a mask of pure primal shock. This is insane. She's crazy. She's senile. She's lying. Ma'am, Murphy said, as an officer cuffed her hands behind her back, we have a recording of your full confession, including the murder of your mother in Alabama. You have the right to remain silent. As they dragged her out, she locked eyes with me. The hatred in her gaze was a physical thing. You think you won? You ruined everything. Damien will never forgive you for this. You'll die alone, you old bitch. You'll die alone. The door slammed shut. The house was silent, and I was, for the first time in months, completely safe. 3 hours later, Damien burst through the front door. He'd clearly sped all the way from his office. Mom, what the hell is going on? The neighbors called. They said the police arrested Jocelyn? For what? He looked around the room, his eyes wild. He saw me sitting on the sofa wrapped in a blanket. He saw Detective Murphy standing by the fireplace. He saw the evidence bags on the coffee table containing the pot roast, the wine, the cake. Damien, I said, my voice gentle. Mr. Hawthorne, Detective Murphy said, stepping forward, your wife has been arrested for the attempted murder of your mother. What? Damien laughed, a hysterical, broken sound. That's insane. That's impossible. She's been taking care of Mom. Mom's been sick. She has dementia. She's confused. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Mom, tell him. Tell him this is a mistake. Tell him what you said. I just looked at my son. My heart broke for what was about to happen. Son, I said, I've never had dementia. I've never been confused. Jocelyn has been systematically poisoning me for over 4 months. No, I don't believe you. He turned to Murphy. You're believing the ramblings of a sick old woman. This is crazy. Detective Murphy just nodded. I understand this is a shock, sir. With your mother's permission, I'd like to play something for you. It was recorded in this house this afternoon. I nodded. Play it, Detective. Murphy pulled out his phone and hit play. We all sat in silence as Jocelyn's voice filled the room, her cold, clear, calculating voice. We heard her talk about the $250,000 life insurance. We heard her talk about the $300,000 house. Damien's face went white. We heard her say, Damien doesn't suspect a thing. He's wrapped. I control Damien. He made a small, choking sound, and then we heard her confess to murdering her own mother. We heard her lay out in cold, clinical detail her plan to give me a fatal heart attack. Tonight. When the recording finished, Damien was bent over, his head in his hands, making a sound I hadn't heard since he was a small child who had fallen from his bike. A raw, agonizing wail of pain and disbelief. She said, he whispered, his voice breaking. She said, I control Damien. She said she was planning to, tonight. He looked up at me, his face shattered. Oh God, Mom, oh God, I believed her. I believed all of it. The log, the incidents. I was helping her. I was the one who told her about the insurance. I told her everything. She manipulated you, Damien, I said, moving to sit beside him. She used your love for me against you. I almost let her kill you, he whispered. I was annoyed at you. I thought you were being difficult. I was on her side. He buried his face in my shoulder, and my son, my 42-year-old high-powered attorney son, wept. The days that followed were a blur. The investigation in Alabama was officially reopened. They were exhuming Jocelyn's mother's body. The police searched the house Damien and Jocelyn shared. They found it. The log. Detective Murphy brought it to me. It was a leather-bound journal. Inside, in Jocelyn's perfect looping script, was a daily record of my decline. June 3rd, added 5 milliliters crushed Atavor to morning juice. Subject reported fogginess by 11 a.m. Excellent. June 10th, subject resisted soup. Claimed nausea. Dosage may be too high, must be more subtle. July 2nd, subject convinced she missed dentist apt. Gaslighting phase 2. Complete. Damien is fully on board. July the 20th. Trialing Dementrex. Subject seems weaker, more pliable. Estimate 6 more weeks. She had documented her crimes like a scientist. She had called me subject. She's a sociopath, Francis, Mason Walsh told me over coffee. A true clinical sociopath. No empathy, no remorse, just calculation. You're lucky to be alive. Damien filed for an emergency divorce and an injunction. He was a ghost walking through the motions. He'd hired a therapist. She's been stealing from us too, he told me a week later. He was sitting at my kitchen table, which was now blessedly free of Jocelyn's presence. Small amounts for years, thousands, and she took out credit cards in my name, in your name. She ran up over $20,000 in debt, planning to blame it on your dementia. He shook his head. I was married to a monster, and I never even saw it. The toxins left my body. Dr. Monroe was right. Once the steady daily dose of poison stopped, my mind cleared. The fog lifted, the dizziness vanished, the strength returned to my limbs, and my hair started to grow back. A soft, silvery fuzz that, by the time the trial was set, had become a chic, short crop. Damien came by every day. At first, he was just silent. He'd sit with me. Then he started bringing groceries. Real ones, he'd say, with a sad smile. He started helping in the yard. We'd kneel side by side, pulling weeds, not talking about hearse, but just being. I keep thinking about things, he said one afternoon, pruning my roses. Jokes she made about about you not being around forever, about how we'd be set for life. I always thought it was just dark humor, planning. She was planning, all right, I said, snipping a dead head. I should have listened to you, Mom, he said finally. In the hospital. You told me. You said Jocelyn is lying, and I told you were confused. I chose her over you. She laid the trap perfectly, Damien. Don't blame yourself for walking into it. Blame her for building it. He nodded, but I knew the guilt would be his own life sentence. The trial was a media circus. The poison pot roast. The sociopath daughter-in-law. I had to testify. I sat in the witness box, my mind sharp, my voice clear. I looked at her sitting at the defense table. She stared back, her eyes empty of everything but hate. The evidence was overwhelming. The video from the kitchen, the audio of her confession, the logbook, the toxicology reports from my blood, the new autopsy report from her mother in Alabama, which showed lethal levels of the same toxins. The jury was out for 45 minutes. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of murder in the first degree for the death of her mother, guilty. The judge sentenced her to 2 consecutive life terms. No possibility of parole, ever. Damien and I walked out of the courthouse, blinking in the bright sunlight. He put his arm around my shoulder. It was finally, truly over. It's been a year. My house is my own again. The locks are changed. The kitchen is a place of joy, not fear. Damien sold the house he'd shared with her. He has a small apartment near me. We have dinner every Sunday. We're healing. I think back to that first day, waking up in the hospital, cold and terrified, hearing Jocelyn's whisper, "Finally, a look that suits you." She'd meant the look of a victim, frail, bald, weak, dying. I looked in the mirror this morning. My silver hair is thick and healthy. My eyes are bright. My mind is sharp. She was wrong. This is the look that suits me. This is the look of a survivor. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.